Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Facebook Live. I'm your host, Jess.
And I'm your host, Lauren.
And today we have a super extra special guest with us. We're going to talk all things AI. We know it's a new topic. There's a lot going on the internet, all over the place. And we're going to tell you about how it ties into your education. But before we jump into all of the good content, Lauren is going to give us a couple Facebook Live disclaimers. So take it away, Lauren.
Thanks, Jess. So thank you all for everyone who's watching and joining us today. We're so excited to have this conversation with you. As a reminder, just please don't leave any personal information in the very public comment section. If you need to get in touch with us, you're welcome to give us a call. The number for admissions, if you're not currently enrolled, is 1-888-427-6500. If you are already a Penn Foster student and you'd like to chat with us, the number for student services is 1-888-427-1000. All of that being said, if you have any questions about AI, thoughts on AI, how you use AI in your education, please leave all of that in the comments section because we do love to look through that, see what you guys, have to say and are thinking about this and really include you in this conversation. And as Jess mentioned, we have an amazing guest with us today, our Chief Learning Officer, Dr. Andrew Shean. He is our resident expert on all things AI. So welcome, Andy. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Penn Foster?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Lauren. Jess, really excited to be here. So I'm the Chief Learning Officer at Penn Foster Group. I've been here for almost 2.5 years and loved every minute of it. Been a chief academic officer for like the last 10 years. And just for what it's worth, I began my path in education as a high school English teacher and worked with the at-risk youth. And that's kind of where my heart is and probably always will be. At Penn Foster, I lead academic programs. So those include like your instructors, your graders, the folks that you interact with when you need extra support and help with academics. I also lead kind of the vision for the learning design team. So those are the folks that help create the actual content. And then I lead the academic and non-academic support team. So the folks when you call in and need help with like a payment or you don't know what your next course or program might look like, those are the folks that help you. So, that's me.
Thanks. I think it's definitely. And it's cool that I think you have so much insight into a lot of how our learners interact with us at Penn Foster and their experience. And I think it's cool that that's something that you think about and in the conversation of AI, which is what we're going to get into. So some topics we'll cover today are what kind of AI is relevant to education, how you can use AI to help you learn, what are some do's and don'ts of using AI for school? Is using AI cheating? That's a popular question right now. And why you should learn more about AI. So Andy, overseeing so many aspects of education and the learner experience at Penn Foster, let's kick it off by you telling us a little bit more about what kind of AI is most relevant to education.
Yeah, that's a good one. So just maybe I'll do like the rule of 3. And then if we want to dive deeper into something, let's do it. Let me start with which is there was a study many, many years ago that in education research was like the study. And it was by Bloom and it was called the 2 Sigma study. And basically what they did is they took 3 different groups. One group got like your normal, typical direct instruction. One group was required to do mastery learning, and the other group got one-on-one tutoring. They called this study the 2 Sigma study because the group that got tutoring got 2 standard deviations increase in learning, which is significant. But the challenge is that one-on-one tutoring is very, very expensive. And if a school can't support it, typically folks, let's say you come from an affluent family, can tend to afford tutoring. But folks, let's say, that are just getting by may not necessarily be able to afford that. So there was a real kind of inequity in that. And so you fast forward to AI, and to me, it's the beginning of one-on-one tutoring for everybody. So there's a real democratization, and at least what I view as the potential of AI. So I just want to ground ourselves in the promise of a technology generative AI, at least, that's fairly recent. And I think that's really exciting. So the potential here is immense. I think the second thing is, it's absolutely relevant to education, and quite honestly, is going to be integrated into the common platforms that I'm guessing a lot of you use today. So, simple example, right? If you're using Google, it's now and increasingly going to be powered by, I think, Bard. Is that right? Or whatever the name of their AI engine is, which is going to make things like search and other functionalities increasingly more sophisticated. So you may not even know it right now, but you're using generative AI. And then finally, 3, we have over the last 4 to 5 months, the creation of so many new tools that are powered by this new artificial intelligence, right? ChatGPT is probably the one that you've heard the most about. This is crazy, right? I mean, I think in January they had 1 million users, and in February, 100 million users. That's the fastest adoption of an educational technology in general that I think we've seen ever. More than Facebook, more than, you name it. So there's something very powerful happening here, but it's more than just ChatGPT, right? I mean, you have image creation, video creation, and you're now seeing billions of dollars in investments in everything under the sun, right? Writing feedback, math tutoring. I mean, you name it, it's happening. And I think for you as a user, what I would just really encourage you is to be really in the know. Be somebody who's reading about this, who's seeking insight, who's asking friends, who's looking to resources like what Penn Foster Group offers, which we just launched a new site on our Learning Resource Center all about AI, and you can get much more specifics here. But really be somebody who's taking this seriously and who's inquiring and seeking to learn more about it, because listen, this is not going away. This isn't a fad. This is, think about many years ago, right? When you use paper maps. Do you use paper maps anymore? No, like same kind of concept, right? It's here to stay.
I want to go back to one thing that you said about the access that AI kind of provides for outcomes. When, typically in the past, you had to have been able to afford a tutor to get that extra help and extra support. And now AI is accessible for anyone. But I think another cool thing about it is that, seeing a tutor or working with somebody in person can be intimidating for a lot of people. And it's also not immediate. So if you need help in the moment, AI is there for you and ready. And it's also not as scary to open up ChatGPT as it could be for a tutor. So I think that's kind of another cool way that it opens up access to positive learning outcomes.
Yeah. But Lauren, there's a couple things there that are really worth noting. I think your point about in education world, we call kind of the gold standard meeting the student at the point of need. Mm-hmm. And right. And if you're a student, for example, on this session and you're a Penn Foster student, you might be studying Saturday night, Sunday morning, Tuesday after the kids go to bed. And those are times in which there's not always a human available to help you. We wish there was, but there's not always. And so to be able to have access to an AI tutor, for example, that's available 24/7, which really aligns with that point of need concept, is huge. Right. So I think that's a great point. Now, if you happen to be an educator and you're listening to this, or even like a tutor and you're listening to this, I would just really challenge you in a good way, because if you can't be available 24/7 and you're not as accessible as an AI, what I hope you bring in spades is the human element, right? How do you motivate and care and connect in ways with your learners that, let's say, a computer can't? So my hope is this is the kind of technology that like lifts all boats, right? So view this as almost like ways to be the best version of yourself as a tutor. But Lauren, the key point here is that 24/7, availability is significant, especially for our learners who are living super busy lives. And I think that's one of the, potential game changers here.
Definitely. And I agree with what you said too. There'll be aspects of tutoring and education that, an in-person conversation, you just need to have that in those moments. But if we can supplement some of that need to learn more with AI or with online tools, then that's awesome.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, that makes 100% sense. And I feel like you said it's something we need to learn about because it's not going anywhere. You can either fight it or you can rock out to it. It's one or the other. And I think that that's really important, whether you're a student or you're a professional already. I mean, it's infiltrating so many industries and so many like parts of our everyday life. We really need to know more about it and its, its relevance to education in terms of this conversation. So in your opinion, Andy, what is the best way for a student to use AI platforms to help them learn?
Yeah, that's a good one. So there's a lot of there's sort of like endless possibilities. But if you think about a few really basic ones, right? So one, a lot of students struggle with writing, right? Listen, when I went to grad school, that was probably like my biggest fear. Is like, gosh, I'm going to have to write a lot. Am I really going to be successful? And I was a student who was able to like go to the writing lab and spend time with writing tutors, where not everybody did. So I think one of the ways you should think about using AI is for writing. Now, this is a really important distinction. I think we'll get into this in a second. I am not saying use AI to write your paper. I'm saying use AI to think to that tutoring concept to provide feedback to you, right? And so one of the things that you want to practice and get good at, and they call it kind of prompts, is being able to write a prompt in an AI engine like ChatGPT that can give you the kind of feedback that you're looking for. Now, we at Penn Foster Group, we're gonna help you do that. Not only are we gonna help you do that within your actual writing assignments, but in the Learning Resource Center that I mentioned, we actually have references to strategies and tips about writing prompts. But if you get really good at writing prompts in a ChatGPT like AI engine, you can find ways to submit your paper, right, and get automated personalized feedback in like the snap of a finger, right? So writing is, help is a huge way that I think learners can take advantage of AI to support their academic progress. But it's not just feedback with writing, right? I mean, you can get an outline for an essay that you want to read. You can brainstorm topics. You can ask for a model example, right? Not take that example and use it as your own paper, but an example to look at and say, oh, this is kind of what the rubric that I'm getting that I'm supposed to write. Here's an example of what an AI might write relative to that rubric, and use it as a model to look at and say, okay, this is how this should be crafted, and then use that then to write and generate your own writing, right? So within the writing process and then the actual feedback, AI presents a tremendous support for learners. To me, I used to love as a kid, I don't know about you all, remember like the Encyclopedia Britannicas where you would just go through and flip pages. So you'd be on W and we learn about whales, but that was like fascinating. That's when we were younger and super curious about everything. You can think of AI as sort of like a 21st century encyclopedia. And so, okay, what's that look like in real life? Go get curious. Go have conversations back and forth with an AI, right? I mean, I think the other day just asking all sorts of questions about history. It's just fascinating to hear what the AI engine will share with you based on the questions you ask. And this is an important differentiator between an AI engine like ChatGPT and Google, right? Listen, I'm no knock on Google. I love Google, but we should know that when you submit questions to a search engine, the top hits are often ones that are paid for. And so in a ChatGPT, at least for now, that's not the case. So you're getting information more purposely aligned with your question and with less, let's call it economic motivation. So think of AI as almost like a get curious, like a conversational Q&A. And then lastly, I would say, based on the specific type of thing you're trying to learn, there's likely an application for you, right? Are you trying to create images for a presentation? Do you want to put a little video together, for some kind of artifact that you want to create? You name it, there's an AI. Creating a website in like a couple questions, boom, like there's an AI tool out there. And that's back to like get into the research mode here, like really spend some time reading and thinking and talking to friends and soliciting experts like our LRC page so that you really become aware of all that's possible and keep abreast of it, because gosh, every day something new gets created. And I really think we're going to be in that stage for a bit of time here.
Absolutely. You talked about using AI for research. How much can you trust AI to help you with research? Is it accurate? Do you feel like there's a need to, double check the information you're receiving?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think point. There's a professor who I really love at I believe the Wharton School of Business who coined this term. And he used ChatGPT. Like ChatGPT is like a really patient intern who occasionally lies to you. And it's true, right? And in the kind of the clinical terms, they call it hallucinating. Because remember, there's not like real artificial intelligence yet, right? It's really based on statistical, math in which you're creating all these different if then that kind of work behind the scenes that then produces these results for you. And if the algorithm, if you will, isn't quite certain what you're asking, or sometimes might generate an answer that's not 100% true. So get on like your BS detector, right? Like think reflectively skeptical, right? By the way, that's true of reading textbooks. That's true of listening to professors. People have subjectivity. People are not 100% right. Let me tell you, as a teacher, I made a lot of stuff up when I didn't know the answer. I'm just kidding, sort of. But I mean, really, right? And so like have a certain skeptical lens to it, which is great because hopefully that facilitates a certain amount of critical thinking, right? Walk into any educational environment, to any textbook, to any AI engine with a certain amount of like discerning between what has merit and what doesn't. So, but at the end of the day, you should not accept 100% of what you get in there as gospel. I would really assume most of it is probably at least somewhat accurate, but have a critical eye.
That's a really good point. Wanted to go back to something else that you said about using it to get curious. There was a lot in that last answer you gave that was really interesting. I think, when I think about learning, when you're going through a course, you're trying to really get the information you need to pass the test, pass the exam, and make it through. And when you're maybe looking at your textbook or your course materials, there's only going to be a certain amount of information on the subject that really enables you to, get through the course. But one cool thing about AI is it enables you to have that resource to dig a little bit deeper. And I think that that's very cool too, even if you just want to deepen your understanding for curiosity purposes, but then the more you understand, often the better you may do on an exam or in your course because you can understand that concept more holistically. So I don't know. I think that's just another really cool part about AI.
But can I? So sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead.
I just building on him. There's a really wonderful educator, and those of you who have kids, you may have sent your kids to school called Montessori or heard of the methods. But one of the things that I love about Montessori schools and the Montessori sort of pedagogy, which is like the way we think about teaching and learning, is this notion where kids sort of, especially early on, are able to kind of independently seek out things they're interested in. And when they're there, they go deep and they play and they create. And so as you get further along in your education, Mike, just to be honest, like my fear is we lose some of that Montessori magic. And my hope in the early days of online learning was that we could democratize knowledge, right? Whereas in higher education, at least, this knowledge used to just be in the heads of these brilliant professors, and it was their job to sort of let you know their brilliance, and it was your job to like remember it and figure out how to apply it. I think we're in a world where like knowledge is everywhere and accessible by a lot of people through the internet. Now we have to get better at creating equity with technology. Like that's a whole other topic. But the hope here is that we democratize knowledge. That doesn't mean that you just figure out how to learn overnight. That's a whole separate thing. But that's a step, right? Is democratizing knowledge. And then you take AI, right, especially generative AI, and really it's gonna be, I think, like a learning tool for you for the rest of our lives. And that's really exciting because it's not just about looking for insight in an ocean, right? It's really having more of a personalized tool to take that information that's now somewhat ubiquitous and democratized, and being able to have a tool that's able to like distill and get for you, especially as you get better at writing prompts, the kind of information that's most relevant. And so now you have like kind of a version of a teacher accessible to you in a way that I don't even know I even dreamed of like 10, 15 years ago. And so this notion of like get curious, and yes, there's like specific things we need for you to learn in your program that are relative to the jobs you want to get. But as Lauren said, if there's something that you're fascinated by, go back to that time when you're a little kid and you really want to dive deeper on, you have the means to go dive deep. And to me, that's kind of revolutionary, quite honestly.
And I think it's part of what makes AI pair really well with online education, to your point, because if you're sitting in a brick and mortar classroom, you're often maybe not able to be on your phone or not able to be, using AI to search and go deeper on certain topics. And you're trying to keep up with a live teacher. When you're online at home doing that, then you can kind of, have your course up, but maybe take a pause and dig deeper on something that you're curious about. And I just think that that's a really cool pairing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think the people who are going to get this right aren't going to try to fight it off. They're not going to try to ignore it. It's not going away. Think of like paper maps. They're going to be the ones, and I'm going to go back to like my human tutor analogy. They're going to figure out where the human component really is a special, unique quality that then is leveraging AI to be even more of a powerful educational environment. Like, don't think of them as a either or. Think of like how they fuse together in the best possible way. But I agree with you that I think online environments are especially poised to take advantage of this new technology.
Yeah, I think that it's really cool too, the way that, the conversation is kind of going, that you can become an expert on how to utilize AI best for you. It's not necessarily a crutch. It's another tool that we need to learn how to harness and learn how to use for each individual, learner or professional or anybody in that matter. So I think that that's a really cool way of looking at it, that like, obviously, and we'll get into this next, I think, is about AI, whether it's cheating or, utilizing it for certain things. But once you learn how to use it for you, it's a tool. It's not a crutch, if that makes sense.
It 100% does. I mean, and I would just, Jess, if I could, just one like other recommendation, sort of encouragement to learners is given you have access to a version of a 21st century encyclopedia and a one-on-one tutor, and you can go deep and get curious and do it 24/7. I just like encourage students so much to think about what it means to be a self-directed learner, right? I mean, I think, people ask me sometimes like, what's the most important thing you would tell a student, to get good at, and I mean, I think critically is probably one of them, but gosh, be a self-directed learner. You're living in times where it's never been easier to access knowledge. Now, that doesn't mean it's the equivalent of like sending you to the library and saying, teach yourself economics. We know that learning is much more complex and messy, which is why folks like Penn Foster Group exist, is because we really know the ingredients that lead to good learning. But you can absolutely take advantage of some of these tools that, folks even 6-7 months ago didn't have access to. So I just encourage you to be a self-directed learner and encourage you to leverage these tools, because I really think there's a huge benefit here, and it's not going away. It's only going to increase in what's available.
So let's get super practical and maybe go through some of the do's and don'ts of using AI in tandem with school.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's start with the don'ts. Right. And remember, like there was a time where like the typewriter or the calculator, right, were very feared. The internet, were very feared in sort of the public educational organization, and probably with some merit. You want to sort of like take it in and figure it out. But those are really common tools, right, today. And so I think with AI, I wouldn't view just AI in general as a threat, but it is kind of how you use it that matters. So like a don't is do not, and we've gone over this before, I'm just going to say it again, though, like do not use AI to cheat. Like what benefit is that if you don't do the learning and you don't do the thinking? I mean, maybe you get away with it and you get a degree or certificate, but do you have the skills that you're going to need to be effective in your job and future jobs? Like you're sort of just cheating yourself in a way. And so don't use AI to cheat. Do the thinking. Do the learning, right? Don't cut and paste essays or be in your exam and have an AI engine on the other side and just like typing the question and getting the answers. Like that's not what we want, right? And honestly, the more that happens, the more you're going to see educational organizations like fight back the innovative possibilities like democratizing learning. So be part of good and fair use, right? So don't use it to cheat, I think, is probably like my number one message. The other thing that I would say is, and we've touched upon this as well, but don't accept everything as gospel, right? I mean, it's capable of hallucinating or not being 100% accurate. So approach it with some level of discernment, right? Like what's accurate here, what's not, which is, I think, a great tool for critical thinking. So don't accept 100% of it as true. Have a discerning, eye, critical lens. Don't use it to cheat. And then the third thing I would say is make sure you're like adding your own personal creativity, especially when you're using it as like a productivity tool, like creating a video or like creating an image or creating a website. Think about it as offering you like a base, and then you get to like work with that base. So don't let it rob you of being creative and producing and like, and making it your own personal mark, right? There's tons of do's, and like we've gone over some of them. Like get curious, think of like 21st century encyclopedia, use it to go deep, where you really have interest and think there's real relevance. Get knowledgeable, research and find out about the trends and the tools and the applications that are really highly rated and feel very relevant to your learning, and use it as like a 24/7 point of need, as sort of Lauren mentioned, tutor when you need it, right? And then my final call to action, which I'll just reiterate, is like become a self-directed learner. It's the greatest gift, I think, in educational world that you can have, especially now with AI.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Andy, also, if I know we've talked a lot about doing your own research about AI and learning about it, just, the best way to fight the fear of it is to know everything you could possibly know. So in your opinion, where are the best resources to learn about utilizing AI? I mean, I know we talked about, we have in the Learning Resource Center, but is there anywhere else that you would suggest learners or anybody watching to go to get the DL, if as it were, on AI?
The download, yeah, I love it. Yeah, I mean, I am a big fan of the Khan Academy, and I'm a big fan of Simon Collin. They actually have a course on AI on their website, nonprofit. It's free, and I really encourage folks to check that out. There's a ton of great insight as well as a ton of great resources in that free course. Honestly, this sounds kind of cheeky, but ask AI. Right. I think if you have a chat GPT, although I'd probably use a more modern version that has the most up-to-date intelligence in it, you can ask it about what's the future look like for AI. You can ask it like recommended resources. You can really use it as like a tool to ask about itself, which I know it sounds funny, but listen, I was leading an AI summit at the Penn Foster group, and one of the first things I needed to do is craft an email. And I literally asked ChatGPT about its own future, and its answer felt pretty right on. And then quite honestly, check out the news. I mean, there's news articles that are coming about, feels like daily, with like breakthroughs in AI. And a lot of times they'll reference in those articles a lot of existing resources and applications. So just check out the news about AI, and even like subscribe to a feed. I think is worthy. and just have information come to you as it becomes most updated, right? But again, outside of the like specifics, I mean, just immerse yourself in that world. I mean, you have, right, the internet, you have search engines. Like, I mean, I really think just get curious and spend some time just digging, and guaranteed you're going to find some gems.
That's really good advice. One more thing on the cheating do's and don'ts topic that I know a lot of people watching will want to know is, can your teachers tell if you're cheating with AI?
Yeah. So the answer, we're just being honest, right? The answer is sort of. And so what I mean by that is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like spam, right? But if you have an internet, you typically get hit with spam, which is maybe like an unwanted advertisement or a pop-up that you didn't really like. And so there's all these tools that are essentially spam filters, right? That, you set up that sort of block the spam. And what's amazing is like the tools and the spam are increasingly in this battle for like who's more sophisticated, and you'll block some stuff, but some stuff will find a way through. I'd argue that's very similar to what's happening in the generative AI space. Some people will tell you that they figured out a tool that can detect it. ChatGPT-0 is one that at the Penn Foster group we've been looking at. We have a tool called Grammarly that all paper submissions run through, that can tell whether or not, for example, you went and got a paper from Course Hero, or whether you used too much internet citation and not enough of your own thinking. But to the extent that it can really tell whether or not you've used like a generative AI engine is back to that like spam filter race. Sometimes we think there's an ability to figure out. Sometimes the technology is advancing, and sort of like where it's going in the future, I don't know. But right now, I'd say if you listen to the experts, I think they would say we do not have 100% accurate way to detect and catch AI, which to me means that the individual user has even more significance in sort of the ethical consideration of fair use. And again, this is a tool that can be harnessed for incredible good, right? But it also can be a tool where if too many people use it to cheat, you're going to see a lot of educational organizations like lock it up and not take full advantage of it. And so I feel like as a community of learners, let's all embrace doing our own thinking and our own learning, using AI as an incredible tutor and tool, but not as a means to do the work for us. Because then, like, what do you really gain, right? So that's a long answer, Jess, but I just felt it was worth expounding on. I got into education to hear myself talk, if you can't tell.
No, that makes 100% sense.
And I think that was important to cover. And I think in a lot of what you said earlier too, at the end of the day, you have to do the learning. Like, there are no shortcuts in life. Even if you use AI or other methods of cheating to, get through your schoolwork or get through whatever you're working on, you're going to get, it's the karma will come back to you later on. Like, you still will need to have that knowledge for your career or for your life. So, really it is about doing the learning, but just using AI to expand it, not to block you from actually, doing the right thing in your education.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
So I think that being said, there's a lot of ways that, we covered on how to use AI with your education to empower it and support it in a lot of what you spoke about today. But there are also ways to use AI to support it, in your education, like in task organizations, but then in your life and in your career. So can you talk a little bit about why you should learn more about AI and use it in your life?
Yeah. I mean, it, in terms of like a productivity tool, I don't think we've seen anything, right, quite like this. And so 100%, like, we've covered how you use AI for more explicit learning in like an educational environment. But, there's this slogan that like AI is not, I mean, yes, it's going to automate and displace some jobs, right? It's also going to create a lot of new jobs. I think, though, the saying is that what AI is really going to disrupt is the folks that are not using AI as a productivity tool, right? That's who's really going to be at risk. But the individual, right, who has their own sort of, call it like the human expertise and skill set powered with like AI, that to me is where like the magic is. And so just a simple example, right? I mean, imagine let's say you're a web developer or you're a coder, right? I mean, AI has the capability to help you create code, right? Or to help you create web, content. And so using it in your job is going to become, in my opinion, I mean, and obviously certain trades more so than others, but it's almost going to become, again, I keep going back to the example of like, when was the last time you used a paper map, right?
Yeah.
It's going to just almost become common. It's just like what we do, just like it's so often that we use the internet or a computer in a lot of our jobs. I mean, literally it's going to be that common, but I think if you can get in early right now, you can really distinguish and separate yourself. I was talking to a good friend of mine this weekend who happens to be own a small investing firm, and they focus really on socially responsible investing. And he's never really used AI before. I was like, have it write you a business plan, have it draft you weekly communications. I mean, we just went down the list. He's like, oh my gosh, because I never knew all of the possibilities. So absolutely to work. But same is true of life, right? I mean, you want to learn about gardening. You want to know tips on how to like coach kids in sports. I mean, it's like a much more sophisticated version of Google, because the insight and the feedback that you get is far more tailored. And I would argue, at least currently, less economically motivated, meaning that like someone didn't pay to have what they think rise to the top of the search. So I really think that not only can AI be a huge benefit for education, but it can be a huge benefit in life and career, 100%.
I think in a lot of what you just said too, it seems like AI can be useful in kind of giving you the base, like figuring out the base business plan, figuring out the outline of your paper, and then it leaves you with a lot more room for creativity to figure out how to really take that base and make it something special and get curious and pour your life experience and creativity and your heart in it. And I think that that's really cool, that it saves you the time and how to do something, and then you get to use your critical thinking abilities to fill in the rest.
Yes, I think that's it. I mean, I think that's my hope where we go.
Awesome.
Well, this was
ahead, Jess.
incredible. I just feel like I learned so much, and I'm sure everybody watching feels the exact same way. I mean, we could sit here and talk about this for hours and hours, especially with someone with as much expertise as you, Andy. So just genuinely thank you from me and Lauren and everybody watching for taking the time to talk about this like super important, relevant, kind of ambiguous topic for our Facebook audience. It's been really great.
That's great. Thanks, Jess and Lauren. And if I could, maybe just one thing to the audience, just to like maybe end with like the significance here. The CEO of Google recently said that the generative AI technology is more significant breakthrough than electricity. So that's not someone who just goes out and says stuff to says it, right? So that's a significant comment. And I just encourage you to take that in for a second, and then think about the fact that we're kind of in the early days of this. And so lean in, right? Think about embracing it and getting curious, and maybe even getting excited, because, especially from a learning perspective, I think the possibilities are tremendously exciting, and I really hope you take advantage of it.
That's really good insight and advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure we'll have a follow-up conversation about this a year from now, and who knows what'll have changed with how fast AI is developing. But this was an awesome conversation today. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you for everyone watching. We hope you all dabble in AI and take the time to learn more about it. And we'll be sharing more from the Penn Foster side as we come up with resources and ways to help you use it. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next time.
Bye.